Wonderful. So thank you. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I want to keep on time, get everybody to lunch on time. My name is Scott Paterson. I'm with the California Department of Technology. I'm Deputy Director over Enterprise Solutions, which is our mobile initiatives, mobile gallery, mobile web template, training tools, things as such that we have within the Department of Technology. We're going to go over today making mobile a reality, kind of a high-level overview of how you as a department or agency or entity can get started in mobile. Some of the tools, training, processes, steps that you can take looking at the technologies that are out there. There's many technologies that are available for mobile. And really what we want to do as an overview of this session is make it, like she spoke of, as interactive as possible. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. Like she said, we will have this will be filmed, so if you want to show your boss that you actually did attend, ask a question. And also make it a little fun. So one of the things that they mentioned in the openings today, I was listening to PK, and he says, celebrate and have fun. Well, within Enterprise Solutions, that's one of my mantras, that we do want to have fun, because it is an exciting technology. It's new. It's pretty much cutting edge. Everybody's having fun with this. Just as an example, I got an email from one of the publicists out there saying that there was a new app that was just put up for Fish and Game, I believe it is. So with our new utility that we have built through the mobile gallery, in 10 minutes we were able to actually put that app up in most recent in 10 minutes from the table downstairs. So it's cutting edge, it's innovative, it's fun, and it's engaging for all the staff. So in moving on, I'll let our panelists introduce themselves.
Good day, everyone. My name is Carter Medlin. I've been a developer with the state of California for about 14 years. I work in the Enterprise Solutions Agency, and I helped develop the state mobile gallery, which we use to host and display mobile applications for the whole state. I like to go and help other state agencies get their mobile presence started, so that's what I generally work with.
Hi everyone, I'm Harkeerat Toor. I'm from Kiefer Consulting. I've been working there for almost 5 years now as a mobile developer and a consultant. We've developed a wide range of applications both for the private sector and public sector. And yeah, I'll be kind of representing the private sector during this presentation.
So yes, sort of two viewpoints, how we are moving forward as a state as Department of Technology and how private industry looks at and is moving forward also. Some of our key takeaways in the form of a question, just keeping with the Jeopardy theme. What does it take to go to mobile? What are the current options for building your mobile apps? Because there's many of them out there. And how do you effectively distribute your apps? Sort of your marketing and advertising strategies, if you will, and or platforms that are available for you to market. So in defining your mobile presence, really the first question that you need to be asking yourself is, what is the life cycle of a mobile app, and how do we get started? So, Carter, would you like to start with that?
Sure. So there's a lot of decisions that go into whether or not you're going to create a mobile application. So you have to determine your audience, because if you are going to make a mobile application, if you are a public sector, you're going to have different people than if you are a private sector. If you're private sector, you may be trying to sell something. If you're public sector, you are getting information out to the public as easy as you can. So when you're going to build your application, you're going to need to determine which tools you're going to use. There's a lot of different tools you can use. There's a lot of different ways you can build your application. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, so part of the process, so the idea of a mobile application is you're trying to leverage a device that people have on them, on their person at like all times. So what you got to really do is try to differentiate how you're using your other public-facing mediums like your website and stuff like that, because if you guys were at the previous presentation by Greg, the Jumping the Mobile Shark, he kind of gave like a really good idea, or how to evaluate, how to figure out how to use all the different sensors that come on a camera or come on a smartphone, whether it's your camera, gyroscope, using like augmented reality, stuff like that. So really, you have all these new features that are available to you that if someone's just going on a desktop on a browser that they won't be able to leverage. So part of your evaluation needs to be trying to think of how to use these features.
So when you decide that you're going to actually build a mobile application, one of the things you have to think about is the staff you have available. So generally, if you're building a mobile application that's a native application that's designed specifically for the device, you're going to have to go out and get staff who are trained in that technology, whether it's iOS or Android or Windows in some cases. If you decide you want to use a mobile web architecture, then you can leverage your existing resources, your existing web developers to make your mobile applications. So that's a huge advantage.
Right, and just to kind of add to that, like development is usually the biggest cost when it comes to developing or for creating mobile applications. I mean, you definitely have the business, the requirements gathering, and the testing phases and maintenance afterwards. But as far as building and development costs, we're actually going to go into a little bit of detail the different options you guys got to help regarding like cross-platform, building on a single device or a single platform, stuff like that.
Okay. And we also have maintain up here on the slide. So one of the important things you have to think about in the long run is how you're going to track analytics. So you want to make sure that people are using this application. So there's a whole bunch of ways to track analytics, and we'll go into that a little later. And then you're going to possibly get questions from the public, and you need to have a plan for how you're going to deal with those questions and how you're going to respond to them. So if you have a large development or a large group of developers working with this mobile application, you might have more staff to deal with the user support. You might not. You might just be a single developer. You're not going to want to get a whole bunch of questions from the public, so you have to take that into consideration.
Right, and the other facet of maintaining your mobile applications is every single year, and actually throughout the year too, there's new features, new OSs coming out, new hardware. Like I think you guys have seen, like, you know, the HoloLens, the Microsoft's whole suite of products. I mean, there's the Google Glass, Sony's coming up with them. There's like so many different new hardware opportunities through mobile, as well as the operating systems are constantly being updated. So one of the things you have to do for maintaining is to keep up to date. I mean, it's definitely a challenge in the mobile sphere because it's changing so quickly, but try to keep up to date and then try to figure out how you guys can leverage all these new features through your own agencies.
So moving on, you brushed upon it, and how you go about building a mobile program and some of the aspects behind that. If you'd like to go over some of these aspects and the components.
Yeah, definitely. So we've identified that there's like 8 core components for when you're developing a mobile program. There's these 8 facets that you got to kind of identify and try to, and these different business units that you got to try to figure out how to make them come together to build a successful mobile program that's going to be sustainable for the future. Now, some of these are fairly intuitive, like why you would need a mobile strategy, just so your development, everything's going to be on the same page. And but then governance is always a key one, because that's basically how is your IT and how are your business executives, how are they going to come together to figure out how to successfully build applications. So you all, so like being from the IT side, you're going to have to keep up to date for, what are the latest trends in technology, what are the latest features and trends in mobile. But then you also got to try to figure out how to communicate and create that communication bridge between yourselves and the executives and the marketing, and trying to figure out how to best leverage all these new things through your mobile, in a mobile space.
And you have to understand why you're making the mobile app in the first place. If you have an executive push to create these applications, then that's why you're making it. But if you actually have some type of IT that needs to be represented, that you, as in your delegation, you're creating. If it's more than just a strategic thing, if it's a tactical thing, you have to make those decisions.
Yeah, and then some of these other ones. So development, technology, security. Like security is definitely a huge one, but that could be a whole nother separate topic, because mobile security, like just having applications, whether it's through your employees or through customers, I mean, there's a whole set of vulnerabilities that you got to be cognizant of. But one of the ones that I want to kind of highlight on was...
Let me jump in real quick on
sure.
security. So one really obvious thing with mobile security is you're dealing with a device that people are carrying around with them. So when we're worried about somebody logging on their desktop and they've got their browser open and they're getting into their email client or something, you don't have to worry about that computer just falling on the street somewhere and somebody being able to log in. Where on mobile devices, you have to consider that someone's carrying this thing around, they just logged into a secure session, and what if they put it down somewhere or something like that? So those considerations are unique to mobile.
Yeah. And also, so the one I wanted to highlight was marketing, because for a lot of you, some of you guys have marketing departments or marketing business units within your agencies, but a lot of you probably don't. But once you create a mobile application and put it into the app stores, you've created a product, and you have to treat it like that. In a sense, being once you have that product out there, it needs to be effectively marketed so you can get those users, so you can get those downloads, and you could keep it evolving in that sense. But marketing doesn't necessarily, I mean, of course it includes, like, if you could have it on a public website, brochures, TV advertisements, stuff like that. But what the most effective marketing strategy for mobile is actually something that you guys probably have, and it is completely free, is social media. So that's the other bubble in here. But social media, so if you think about it, actually, statistically speaking, Facebook is the #1 app that's downloaded, third-party app that's downloaded on mobile phones today. I mean, if you guys want, like, maybe a show of hands, like, how many of you have Facebook installed on your phone? Like, I'd say, well, maybe, but it's either not even necessarily installed, because sometimes it's through the mobile web. But I mean, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, like whatever social media platform you're trying to leverage, that's what most people use their phones for. And if you kind of already have an audience, if you already have some followers, some fans, you know that they're aware of your agency, that they're aware of your brand, they're already kind of vested in you. So if you can leverage that to market your application, and just say, this is where you could download it, and these are the new features, that's always great.
And maybe you don't use social media as much as, I'll just say it, millennials. So I mean, we've got millennials out there that are using these things. They expect a mobile presence, and they're using Facebook. So they're expecting you guys to do this, even if you don't think it's something you would use. It's definitely something that millennials are going to use, or the younger generations. One other thing I want to add about the social media, specifically Facebook and Google+, is they offer forms of authentication that you really can't get anywhere else. Facebook is phenomenal at identifying unique users. So if you want to make authentication within your application, consider using Facebook authentication or other forms of online or social media authentication. It works, it's easy to integrate, but that's something, I mean, that's less of a marketing and more of a security thing, but it's definitely important to consider with social media. So I know a lot of agencies, at least in the public sector, sort of just say, no, we're not going to use Facebook at all, we're not going to use any form of social media authentication, but it's something you definitely need to consider.
Right, and just one more pro is that since most people are using social media through a phone anyway, it's a one-click event just to have them download your application, whatever you've created. So just make it as convenient as possible for your users.
One, just to jump in on that, one tool that we use at Department of Technology is our California Mobile Gallery. We just did a big redesign effort, launched that back in October, and just recently we've added local government category to that, and Ventura County has been our first adopter on that. We just put that out today. So the mobile gallery has been growing year over year at about 12 to 15% in apps that are being added to it. But the statistics now of mobile devices hitting ca.gov websites has just increased to 35 to 40%. So anybody now who we had the evolution of the internet. Well, now anybody who's really accessing the internet has gone up to 40% of them are now on a mobile device. So, and that's been going up year over year also. In the last 3 years, it's gone up 8% per year over year. And I expect that to increase even more. Some of the mobile access to your services or your information mobile devices now kind of have a demographic put behind them in that more people now may not have access at home because they either can't afford it or they don't have the service available, but they are hitting it through their smart device, be that a smartphone, tablet, whatever it is.
Right.
So those demographics are also increasing year over year.
Yeah, and the last bullet we wanted to cover was customer relations. So going back to the whole this is a product kind of theme, once it's out there, like you could have the best designed application, like as intuitive as possible, straightforward, you know, button, click, but I guarantee someone out there is going to be confused on how to use it. Like, I mean, it just always happens. They're going to need some help. They're going to need some support. So part of your agency needs to, or part of your thinking for building a mobile program needs to be, how do you support these users? So the fairly obvious ways, and the ones that Google and iOS, Microsoft, they all require, is some sort of email support. So, but you can definitely go above and beyond that. You can have, you know, like FAQs on your website, supplement it that way. You can have call centers that, or a phone number where users can call to try to figure out more. But the other facet of customer relations is app reviews. So app reviews are the, we'll get into ASO a little bit later, which is App Store Optimization, and it plays a big factor in that. But the thing with handling app reviews is, on Android at least, you can actually respond to your customers. So if they write a review, you can reply back and actually respond to it. But the thing that a lot of agencies or a lot of mobile departments do is sometimes they just have their IT staff be the ones that kind of manage that, which, I mean...
That could go badly.
It could, yeah. Right. I mean, sometimes it's fine, like it's, you know, like how do you use this feature or something like that, which they might be equipped to handle. Yes. But, I mean, sometimes like, this is a public forum, so... And sometimes you're going to have people that are acting maliciously. Like, they really don't care too much about your product. They might have just downloaded your app so they could leave a 1-star rating and just berate.
Yeah, I doubt any developers really want to be front-end customer support. It's just, yeah. And if they are forced to do that, they're not going to be happy about it.
Yeah, so I mean, that basic idea is to try to build a process to figure out how to handle that, how to handle app reviews.
Somebody who's responsible for that.
Right.
Somewhere.
Good point. So in the gallery, we actually have ratings and reviews also, and those come, I review those personally. So yes, you do run into some issues where they're not specifically rating the app itself, but they're venting their frustration toward whatever entity it is. So you have to filter those out. But it's not unlike social media. I mean, you do need somebody that's going to maintain it and monitor these things. So that's a very good point. Moving on. We have our fun fact of, did you know, that the average American spends 2 hours and 42 minutes a day on their smart device. I'm not sure who these people are, but I know I'm on mine like 24/7. How many are a little over that? Okay.
Let's get a show of thumbs.
Yeah, show of thumbs. All the Band-Aids.
Yeah.
All right, so evaluating technologies, and really the question is, what are some of the technologies that are out there, and what is a mobile web app?
All right, so mobile web is essentially you're taking a website that a lot of people are familiar with and making it so it'll look good on a mobile device. So, I mean, there's a bunch of advantages to that. I mean, one of them is that you can leverage your existing staff. You can leverage your existing staff. So you have your people already in your organization, and they love making websites. Those people will be able to make mobile websites. All they have to do is learn a little bit of CSS, HTML5, a couple of new things, but they don't have to learn a new server language. If they're doing .NET or PHP, they can continue to do so. They just basically make their output look different. So that's extremely attractive for developers. Also, everything you make is cross-platform. So if you make a website, just like any website design, it'll work on desktop, it'll work on big screens, little screens. So that's an advantage. When you do a native app, you know, you're only making it for one device, so there's some issues with that. So when you go mobile web, you can make it and it works with every device. Yes, let's see. Right, okay, so cons. So there's some limitations. So one of the things you can do with a native app is you can actually use the accelerometer. I can hold this thing up and shake it or look at something and have it processed. You can't do that with mobile web. All you can really do is have it display information. You can you can upload images if you want to. There's a couple of features you can do, but mainly you're using it to get information out, have some interactivity. You could do authentication. There's a few features, but mainly you're not allowed to do accelerometer. So that's why people like to use native apps when they can for features like that. Also, every time you tap on a button on these mobile web apps, you're transmitting data back and forth. Instead of preloading data onto a device, every time you do something, it's reloading the entire screen. So, and that's a lot of network bandwidth to use up for devices. So you have to consider that. So when you design your mobile web app, you have to make sure it's light. You don't include a whole bunch of extra stuff in there because you want to make sure that those users aren't gobbling up their data. And if they're not gobbling up their data, they're going to be more likely to use it. So also, there's no installation. That might seem like a feature for some, but for executives who want to have this nice, sexy application with an icon that installs and it's an app store, it doesn't really do that. You have to, it's basically a website, so you kind of lose out on that. Functionally, you can get what you want, but you're missing out on those icons that people like to have.
Right, but I mean, the biggest pro, I think, is updates are under your control. You don't have to go through Apple, you don't have to go through Google, Microsoft.
Right, yes, it's a client-server app, so you're basically running, you have one version of the application running on the web server, and everybody who connects it gets the same app. If you make an update, it's just like every other website, it gets updated. It's all working the same. Also, that means they're all crashing the same, so if you mess something up, you messed everybody up. Nobody's using it. So it just depends on how you feel about that.
Hold on just one second. You had a question?
Oh, good. Another feature you're not pointing out is one of the advantages of a mobile app. You can send a push notification to that. And I think that's actually one of the most powerful features of an app, is you can communicate directly with the end user.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's more, we're talking like specifically for mobile web, because that's
Well, that is a disadvantage to mobile web, is that you cannot register or push, which you could with native apps.
Right.
So, yeah. But that push technology works different depending on which architecture or which mobile platform you're using. So there's some complexity there. But yes, if you absolutely want to have push notifications that use your native iOS or Android interfaces, then you have to go with the native app. Now, you can kind of get around that by doing maybe an email service. You could have somebody register for an email service and kind of do that, but it's not pushing to an app that's registered on your device.
SMS, but,
yeah.
Or right, text messaging. Actually have it send text message. So there are ways around it. We have a question over here.
Yeah, so in the actual applications of it, so what's the difference between when your devices need to have actual software upgrades and updates themselves, and how is it different between using the mobile web app versus just using a standard standalone app?
So you're asking what the difference when you have to deal with software upgrades between a native app and a mobile web app? Well, a mobile web app, you don't really have software upgrades for the client. It's all, like I said before, it's client server. So when you update your server, it's updated for everybody. Nothing is really downloaded to the client. Every time I go to my mobile web app, I'm just basically just navigating to a custom designed website. And so I'm downloading all the information fresh that time. If it was changed, I get the fresh copy. If it's, as opposed to a installed app, our native app, you have to go and the App Store will set up an update and you'll download it. So that's a big difference between the two.
Right, but that's, a really great point that brings that up, is that you really don't have to worry about operating system updates. So whether there's a new version of iOS out, Android out, it really doesn't matter.
Well, actually, sometimes it does matter. I know there was a big update once when iOS decided to dump Google Maps. That was a huge problem because a lot of agencies had set up their mobile web apps to use mapping links that were interpreted differently once Apple dumped Google as their mapping source. So, yes, operating system updates can affect it depending on. It's essentially when the web browser gets updated, which is what happens during an operating system update. When the web browser gets updated, it will affect your mobile web apps.
So if you're going to be leveraging like other key points that are used on the device, how can we keep up to date to see if those devices are actually going to be obsolete in the future or not? Is there ways to look at that? Or?
Well, you can, whenever a client connects, you can get their user agent string, which has what version they're running. But generally, most people are keeping their mobile devices fairly well updated compared to PCs. You know, back when people were developing websites for PCs, it was like you would have Internet Explorer 5 and 9 running at the same time. You just had to support it. You had to deal with that. But generally, I mean, unless you have no idea how to connect your phone to the internet, you are updating it on a regular basis. It's not going for months not updated. So as far as mobile web is concerned, you really don't have to worry about that as much. It does happen, but it's less of an issue than just plain old desktop websites.
One thing that we've done through the mobile gallery is we have analytics built behind it, so we can actually tell which devices are the most popular, or your platforms, your iOS, your Android, and your Windows. So we have that kind of broken out. So it's nice to have the analytics built behind it to see exactly what's going on in the industry, but that's an excellent question. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep moving on because we're running a little long.
Okay.
Oh, go right ahead.
Thanks. So one of the big cons that we've always had with the mobile web apps is just findability. You know, it's not an icon that gets installed on the phone.
Right.
In the
Right.
App Store. It's just a bookmark on a website.
Yeah.
You know, your gallery helps because that logs mobile apps as well as mobile web apps.
Right.
But do you guys have any ideas on how to increase that findability?
So-
Can you wrap a website in an app?
Right.
So one thing we've done on the new display of the mobile gallery, if you go and you tap on the app that you want to look at, mobile web, right? I'll use Report a Pest as an example. So you go and you tap on that. What it does is it gives you now a standard icon, description, department name, and it also gives you two options. One is to directly launch the app, and the other is to, quote, install. And what that does for your iOS and your Android users is it gives them step-by-step directions on how to create the shortcut on their device, which actually does download that icon that we have on that page. So it does help in that there is some point of reference on your smart device for your execs. They can go, oh, cool, pretty picture. Boom. Yes?
Just to, actually, 1 second, sorry to add to that, you could actually wrap a mobile web app into a hybrid framework, which we'll kind of actually get into a little bit later, but if you wanted to leverage the app stores, that's definitely an option as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way you could go. You could make a wrapper and just put your mobile web app in your native wrapper, and then you have that wrapper built as an app and put on the app stores. I know a couple agencies are doing that.
Apple won't accept that. You can do it for Android, but you can't do it for Apple.
Yeah, you can
Web
try.
Services is doing
You
it.
can do it for Apple, but they'll reject it if it's just,
Right.
you have to add more functionality.
No, yeah, that's a really good point, because Apple has a review process, and one of them is if your app is simply just a website wrapped in an icon, they're not going to usually accept that. So if you can kind of work around it by trying to add some sort of native feature, whether it's, mapping, accessing like, a phone's contact or calendar or something like that, at least make it something different, then you could kind of circumvent that.
We have another question in the back. Ma'am?
Yes.
What do you use to test, because of all the different operating systems and devices? Do you have an emulator tool
For mobile web?
or web apps? Yeah, not apps, but mobile web.
Well, there are emulator tools. Mostly, we're just opening up the web browser and shrinking it. I know Internet Explorer comes with a way to actually change the rendering for specific mobile apps sizes. So, I mean, personally, we're not using any special tools, but there are certainly plenty of suites you can buy out there for mobile testing.
So can you briefly touch upon responsive and adaptive design?
Oh, okay, real quick. So
I want to keep us going here, I'm sorry.
Yes. So now, making a mobile web app, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can leverage that. If you decide that you're going mobile web, you could just make one application that works on one particular size and just leave it at that. But what we'd like to see is agencies creating responsive web design, which basically, if you're not familiar with that, that means every application will render itself properly on the right device. So if you go to a tablet, it's going to stretch and it'll look good on a tablet. Certain features might hide or show depending on the size. So that's responsive design. And then we also have, we'll talk about adaptive design. So if you would rather have a more customized experience for your applications, you could make an adaptive design website, which is essentially each device gets their own code, so you have it specifically targeted. So rather than waiting for that information to download on the client and then have the client stretch it, you're actually going to serve up different applications depending on who's connecting. So that's
Cool. And then moving on to the mobile web template. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the California.
okay. So if you are a state agency, or actually anybody can use this, if you would like to start using a mobile web application or start developing one and you don't have any developers that are really savvy with that, what we have at Enterprise Solutions, we have a California mobile template, which is essentially a sample application. It's very simple. It's kind of stripped down to just the minimals. We have it in C#, we have it in VB.NET, I think we have PHP, so that should cover a lot of the different developers. So you take this application, it runs out of the box, and you can modify it as you see fit and host it as you see fit. And if you have any questions with that, that's something we can certainly help you with. Question?
Use MVC, comes right out of the box. You know, the browser works fine.
Okay.
Android, on you know, Apple stuff too.
For Microsoft MVC?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one, I know if you're familiar with those technologies, you can use them, but there's a lot of developers out there that haven't moved to Microsoft MVC yet. So this is, the mobile template's kind of a way to do that. So yes, if you already have some better tool, you obviously use that, but if you have nothing and you'd like to start with something, that's what we have the mobile template for.
So yeah, so that would go back to your resources. If you have the resources that are available or have that knowledge, then yes, that's a wonderful tool. So yeah, this is just kind of our overarching view for like Carter said, is if you've got staff that are basically web designers, you can pretty much utilize them to get the mobile web template up. Right. So Harkeerat, we've got moving on to HTML5 and
Right. Yeah, so Cordova and PhoneGap, these are probably buzzwords, or not buzzwords, but these are probably frameworks that you've heard of before. Sometimes people get confused on what's the difference between the two. So just really quickly, Cordova is a base hybrid framework to create cross-platform applications using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. PhoneGap is built on top of Cordova, but and it's actually owned by Adobe. So PhoneGap is basically Cordova plus any Adobe services that they want to leverage. But at this point in time, there's really nothing unique or nothing added to PhoneGap. So if you hear Cordova or you hear PhoneGap, they're pretty much the exact same thing. So what these are, this is one option to create hybrid applications. So if you have a mobile web application, you want to leverage the app stores, like you were saying, but also if you want to access some native functionality of a device, this is the route. This is one of the routes that you can go. So, I mean, actually, on the PowerPoint, if you download it and click on the link, you can see exactly what features PhoneGap supports or Cordova supports. But the idea is you have one code base for all the different platforms, whether it's Windows, Microsoft, Android, it really doesn't matter. You can build it very quickly and launch to those app stores. You still do need a Mac. You still need Xcode, iOS developers to once you convert your application to an iOS app, you still need to launch it to the app stores and do any configurations if you wanted to add some native features. And but other than that, the advantage is you're getting a single code base, which is huge because development is one of the biggest factors for building mobile applications. Then you could deploy to the app stores. The downside of it is that since it's a mobile web app, it doesn't really have the performance and the look and the feel of a native application. If you compared the two, users could probably notice it. But as long as UX isn't one of the top reasons or one of the top features of your mobile application, this is really a great route to go.
UX is user experience.
Right.
And Xamarin?
Oh yeah, so Xamarin is another method to build to build cross-platform applications from a single code base. Xamarin is a product that's different from Cordova because you're actually building native applications. You're not using mobile web, you're actually building native applications with a single code base. The code base is C#, and you get about 75% code sharing. So you build your application in C# and you could build a Windows app, iOS app, Android app. So but it's a native app, that's the key difference. So it's about 75% code sharing. The reason it's not 100 is because the UI still needs to be custom made for each platform, which is, I think, acceptable because users usually expect a slightly different experience depending on what platform they're coming from. So you build all your base code using Xamarin, C#, and then the UI you kind of custom make. Yes, you have a question?
Have you, is the difference from like, there's a bunch of boxes like Grow Mobile, Titanium.
Right.
Are they all kind of similar or is one better than the other?
They are similar. The reason why Xamarin is really popular is because they have a really good partnership, especially with Microsoft, and they've been growing really, really fast. I think last year they were at over 500,000 developers, but now they're over 1 million, I heard. So, I mean, they're one of the fastest growing cross-platform development tools. And actually, yeah, we have some connections when we were making this slide, like some Xamarin developers. And yeah, like just some of the features. They have Xamarin Test Cloud, which is an automated cloud testing service. It doesn't need to be a Xamarin app. It could be native or hybrid cross-platform apps to use it, but it integrates really well.
I'm sorry. No, we only we
sorry.
have 10 minutes. I was trying to whisper. I forgot.
Okay.
Forgot I had a mic.
Whisper here.
No worries. But the downside is it's a slightly smaller ecosystem. I mean, compared to native developers or native applications, you're going to find thousands of developers. If your developers are searching for answers to a bug or something, it might be a little bit easier. Yeah.
Does it spit out the source code for each operating system? So, like in some of them, they actually rely on another layer.
So Xamarin will actually convert it to Objective-C code into Java code, into to that native code. But the downside is you're going to get a little bit of a larger app footprint because it's doing the conversion. You're not writing specifically for that platform. And the biggest downside is definitely the cost. It's $999, basically $1,000 per platform per developer per year. So I mean, you could do the math if you have like 2-3 developers supporting 3 platforms yearly. But yeah, that's about it for that.
That's in addition to your Apple developer license.
Right.
So I'm gonna move us through just real quick.
Sure.
So we also have our iOS and Android apps, and we'll have the presentation available on the website and the information. But we're gonna move along just a bit. Also targeting the Windows users.
Yeah, so I'll try to make that really quick, actually. The question is, should you target Windows apps if you're building applications? So Android and iOS, they cover about 95% of the market. Windows is about 4%. So the short answer is no. Long answer, Windows 10 is coming out with some really cool things, and kind of just I'll skip over for now, but eventually just keep an eye out for Windows. It might become viable, especially the part where you can convert existing iOS code or Android code into Windows code. So they're building a tool where you can convert your native application that you've already built to a Windows app, which might cut development costs dramatically for building it. So
when we say Windows, it's Windows Mobile and Windows are all kind of going together now. So it's no longer you have to think about desktop Windows versus Windows Mobile. It's all coming together.
Right. Windows 10 is going to be the last Windows, if you guys haven't heard. After that, it's just going to be perpetual updates. So
doesn't mean it's going away. It's just going to be updated on a regular basis, just like every other operating system we're used to dealing with in mobile.
Right. Yeah, and just really quickly, the question is, how do you stay up to date? Well, one thing I'd recommend is definitely just keep an eye out for these 3 conferences. For Android, Sundar Pichai, he's the one who always does the keynote for Google I/O. iOS, you have Tim Cook. Windows, Satya Nadella. These events, they usually happen around this time. One's going to be at the end of the month. Just at the very least, try to at least watch the keynotes. But these are developer conferences, and these are really the titans of mobile: Windows, Android, and Google. I mean, sorry, iOS, I forgot. But they're the ones that are kind of shaping the landscape. And these CEOs, they're the ones who are they kind of give an overview of the landscape, and they kind of tell where the future is going and what kind of new features are coming out. So I definitely recommend just at least watch the keynotes, but then if you want to get deep dive into the sessions, you could have developers kind of go into there too.
So I'm going to move through. We're going to get to delivery and
Sure.
analytics specific to the apps.
Yeah. Okay, so when distributing your applications, should you include analytics? Well, the answer is it depends. You kind of have some default analytics anyway, because you're going to have number of downloads, number of installs from each whatever platform you're targeting. But if you want to actually understand how your users are using your application, then you are definitely going to need to add some analytics. Whether it's what buttons are they clicking on, is this feature that I'm trying to promote, are people using it or not? I mean, if you need answers to those kind of questions, then yeah, definitely. There's user acquisition, flow, and then I think the biggest one is from a developer standpoint is crash analytics. Because when an app crashes, normally you'll see a message, would you like to report this? Most people say no, which is a pain if you're a developer. So if you kind of add a crash analytics tool, it'll handle that in the background for you. They're going to get analytics on exactly what's happening, and you're going to get the logs that they need to fix the problems.
Analytics for mobile web is pretty simple. You really, if you use Google Analytics, you just basically install, many of you are already familiar with it, but you basically just have a little script you put in your page, and then every time somebody connects, it fires off something to Google saying, we got a hit. So then you can go back and look at your reports. They're pretty comprehensive. If you are a state agency, you can register your application with ca.gov and be included in the overall ca.gov home links, or all the hits for ca.gov will be added together. So that's a good reason to go with that if you are a state agency.
So once we've got it out there, we've got it built, how are the public going to find it? What's the best way to locate these apps?
Right, so definitely the app stores. Each platform has their own, but the problem with these app stores is there's, I think they were saying in the last session, 4 million almost apps out there. How are you going to get it found? So that's where ASO comes into effect. That's App Store Optimization. You could kind of think of it just like SEO, search engine optimization. There's a whole set of tactics, techniques, even services out there that'll help you get your app towards the top when people are searching for it. Other than that, it's marketing, leveraging mobile gallery. And
We have the mobile gallery, which is gaining in popularity. We have our sandwich board ladies out there in the convention hall, if you haven't seen them already.
We have it up.
Oh, look at that. Excellent. Yeah, so obviously if you are a state agency and or actually even a county or city, if you have a mobile application you'd like to see some more traffic for, just let us know and we'll put it up here. One of the neat things is it's the only way without an app store to get a mobile web app sort of out there other than putting it on your website. So that's the whole point we created this. We wanted to make it so it was like an app store, a way to get these mobile web applications out there. So if you make one, let us know.
So in closing, I hope that we have touched upon some of these key takeaways and you guys have gained a little knowledge or information. Like I said, the presentation will be available. And if you have any questions, we have contact information for us within Enterprise Solutions and Kiefer Consulting. And we'd be more than happy to give you any advice, just talk with you, see what direction you'd like to go, if you had any questions for development, hosting, whatever your needs would be. So in that, well, that's it. Look, it went dark. Yes, sir.
Tickets.
Oh, so Greg, thank you, Greg. So Kiefer Consulting will have tickets for you as you exit the door. We also have, he'd like you to come by the booth, talk about your experiences that you've had with mobile. And on the other hand, we also have our mobile gallery is being displayed out there. You'll see it because it has a bunch of leaves on it. We gave it the forest look for a reason, because in my other presentation, we're kind of promoting our Report-a-Pest app and discussing it a bit. But please feel free to come by. We'd love to see you, and thank you so much for your time. Any closing questions?
Oh, by the way, you could use that ticket to grab a box of chocolates from the Kiefer booth, so.
Just like life.
So,
Life
yes,
is like a
keeping
box
with
of
the
chocolates.
Forrest Gump theme, you can get your box of... I'm done. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. I hope you have a great day.